Coming up, we're going to be talking about some Disney Plus original films that have returned. I'll also be talking about the Sandlot series and much more. But before we go any further, make sure you do hit that subscribe button to keep up with the latest Disney Plus news. Hi everyone, it's Roger here from What's On at DisneyPlus.com. A quick Disney Plus news roundup. So let's start off talking about some Disney Plus and Hulu original films which are now available again for us to watch. The downside is they're only available to purchase and rent on digital platforms like Apple and Amazon, etc. So earlier this year, Disney removed over 100 shows and films from its platform as part of a $2 billion impairment charge, which basically kind of wrote off a whole host of content from Disney Plus and moved it off the books. So to help try and make the streaming service more popular, essentially these titles got removed because not enough people watched them and they just deemed them to be no longer valuable as an asset. So they removed all these films and yeah, everyone was annoyed, everyone was upset about this stuff disappearing. And then over the summer, they then released some of those films on digital platforms to purchase. And the good news is a second batch of films has now been made available to purchase in the US at least. This includes Artemis Fowl, The Princess, Darby and the Dead, Wolfgang Clouds, Stargo and Hollywood Stargo. That's in addition to some of the films that got re-released earlier this year, including Crater, Rosalind, Cheaper by the Dozen and Timmy Ferrier, Mistakes Were Made. So most of the films that have been now removed are available. There's still a few that haven't quite made the jump back, but at least they are available. I think that's the good news. The good news is they're not just locked away in the vault. People can watch them legally. They're there if you want to watch them. Now, the simple thing is, who's going to rent them or buy them? Because these films weren't watched enough when they were free on Disney Plus. So yeah, I don't know how many people are going to watch it. There's obviously people can be upset about the fact that, they've taken something away from them and then they're trying to get them to buy it. And I can see that point of view, but I think I definitely slide more into the idea of I'd rather they just were available and not lost and locked away in that vault for the next 10 plus years until they eventually can come out again. Now, whether or not these eventually ever get added back to Disney Plus, there's probably some legal issues that they can't put them back for a while, maybe till like their licenses have run out or something like that. But at least they are available. That is the good thing. But it's a whole situation is just awful with what they've been doing. But hopefully we won't see so much of this in the future with them kind of trying to create less originals and create better originals. More people will watch them. And hopefully this whole era of just removing stuff after it's been cancelled or it's just not good enough kind of maybe is hopefully over, but I wouldn't guarantee it. But let us know, are you going to rent or buy any of these, or are you like, no? The one thing I am really glad of is The Princess, because I thought that was one of the best star original films. I really enjoyed that film. It was very much like a 1990s action film. I liked it. I thought it was good. But yes, it's glad it's there, but I ain't buying it. But let us know what you think of this in the comments below. Speaking of stuff that's been cancelled, we've got a little bit of an update. So we had two updates from TV Line. First off, The Saturdays is now being cancelled. It's not going to be returning for a second season. Obviously, you can watch the first show right now on Disney Plus around the world. Apparently, Disney are just focusing now on multicam shows, stuff about established IPs, and creating more of a global originals kind of thing. So Saturdays just didn't pull in enough viewers. I mean, I would say, the advertising and stuff for some of these shows is almost non-existent. So if you didn't know they were there, not a huge surprise. But yeah, so Saturdays isn't going to be returning for a second season. Also was confirmed in the same article that the Sandlot series has also kind of stopped development. Now, this was initially revealed way back in 2019, and it was going to see the cast returning, and they were all going to be sort of set in like modern times with them teaching new kids or something. But apparently this one is no longer happening. I'll be honest, I'd forgotten this thing was in development. The fact that this was nearly from 5 years ago and nothing has happened, not a huge surprise to see that this has finally kind of come to an end. I wouldn't expect this to pop up anywhere else. I imagine this was still very much in the early stages, never really got going. They never filmed it. They never did anything really too much with it. So yeah, it's just kind of one of those projects that died. I mean, Disney tried to kind of do all this stuff with their 20th century IPs that they picked up when they purchased the company, and just churned out a load of rubbish onto Disney Plus that just wasn't watched enough. And so now they're kind of maybe treating some of the stuff with a little bit more respect. Things like the Planet of the Apes film looks really good. We've had Prey. Those are the kind of things they need to be focusing on and making good stuff, rather than just doing cheap remake. So I think the Sandlot, just let that one go. I mean, yeah, that's the idea. But let us know, are you sad to see that the series is never going to happen? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments below. Disney's also released a brand new trailer for the Australian original series, The Artful Dodger, which is going to be coming out on Hulu and on Disney Plus in Australia and in Canada on the 29th of November. Unfortunately, it has also been confirmed that here in the UK, we're going to have to wait until January the 17th to watch the series, because I don't think they realise we can't understand Australian voices, so they need to dub it. Why? It's just so frustrating, because it's just like, why? It's based on a Charles Dickens book. It's just frustrating that we're having to wait. The trailer looks good. You know, you kind of got the Artful Dodger going out to Australia, and he ends up meeting up with Flanagan again, and it looks like they've kind of got to do one last big job to get some money to save the Artful Dodger's hand from being chopped off for stealing. It looks good. I think it's nice to see kind of like a modern version of this being done, and maybe not so much necessarily tied to the events of the original book. But yeah, it looks good. I'm really looking forward to watching it. But now it's out in January. I'll be honest, it's kind of like, by the time this comes out in the UK, there's not going to be any interest in it. And yeah, it's kind of instantly just gone from must watch to, I'll get around to it, because it's going to be, yeah, it's just so frustrating. I'll get global releases for this kind of stuff. Just frustrating. It's just really, you imagine, yeah, I was just annoyed when I saw that on there. Also, another quick note for us here in the UK, we want to watch the new Disney film, The Naughty Nine. We're getting it on the 1st of December. So in the US and in Canada and Australia, you guys are getting it on Thanksgiving or the day after. We've got to wait another week or so. Again, just global releases, Disney. What? Just do it. I don't know. Well, let's now talk about what is new on Disney Plus today. So the big new release is the Santa Clauses. We got the first 2 episodes. Watched them, enjoyed it. I really like having now a proper villain. They're kind of setting this one up. I'm enjoying it. It kind of is one of those shows of like, it is a bit cheesy, but it knows what it is, and I like that about it. I do like the fact as well, like the kids have kind of got issues going on, and with a daughter kind of learning to become like a witch. And the son just kind of, he hasn't got it. You know, Scott wants him to have it, but he just doesn't have that same thing. But the main thing really for me here is Mad Santa. That is the one I'm really interested in. That's what's made this series better. I think having a strong villain is going to make this show much better. So I'm looking forward to watching the rest of the series. Also today there was some new international originals released around the world. We got a new series called Killer Vacation. From Latin America, there was also a new Korean series, Vigilante. So yes, and lots of great content to be dropped there, as well as like obviously here in the UK we've got like new episodes of Welcome to Wrexham, and like the new episode of Black Cake in Canada and in Australia. You'll find that one on Hulu in the US along with Welcome to Wrexham. Also want to get into a quick review here on a brand new series that's coming out next week, a new British series called Brawn, the Impossible Formula 1 story. So I've watched all 4 episodes over the last 2 nights. Comes out on the 15th, the next week. Really, really good documentary. 4 episodes. Keanu Reeves is presenting it. He's just a really good way of just like doing the storytelling and the narration for it. It kind of brings you into a little bit more, just pulls you in. His interview technique is very relaxed, and it kind of, that seems to work really well of getting good interviews out of the Formula 1 racing cars. So it's all about Brawn GP, which was part of Honda. Honda kind of had to pull out of Formula 1 and ended up selling the whole team for £1, but they would take on all like the debt and stuff. And basically then they went on to win the World Championship. Jenson Button won it. Yeah, now I'm not a big Formula 1 fan. I've never watched an entire race. Here in the UK, Formula 1 is quite a very popular sport. It's on the news all the time. You know, every time there's a race with someone winning, especially obviously we've had like Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton, and you know, so we do have champions that win, so therefore that tends to get a lot more press. So I'm kind of aware of it. And yeah, so I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good documentary. I'm definitely starting to feel that I really actually quite like these like sports documentaries. I'm thinking like things like Welcome to Wrexham, Netflix's Quarterbacks. I've been enjoying like the 30 for 30 shows and stuff like this. yeah, I'm just kind of quite enjoying these sports documentaries, which is kind of weird because I'm not really a huge sports fan. I don't really watch a lot of sports other than wrestling and the odd bit of like UFC and American football. But yeah, so it's a really good documentary. And for someone that kind of that wasn't really interested in this, to kind of get away with it, I felt like I learned something. I felt like I was entertained, and I got to that point. I wanted to know what happened. I did end up at one point Googling what happened because I wanted to spoil it. I'm thinking, this happened 15 years ago. It's not a spoiler. I should really know what's happened. But yeah, really good documentary. Really recommend it when it drops next week on Disney Plus here in the UK and around the world, and on Hulu in the United States. So definitely check that one out. In our comment today, which comes from Broken Bridge, he says, I love a good what if regardless of where it comes from, and Marvel's what if show is awesome. However, Disney should also be considering putting on a Star Wars what if series, because I've seen a lot of what if videos on YouTube involving Star Wars, and they're all very good. This could be a great platform for Disney. It's kind of interesting with the fact you're saying about like what if, doing a what if version for Star Wars. And while I see where you're going, I think What If needs to stay as its own separate Marvel brand because that's an established comic book series and it works. But then I kind of look at it and go, well, Star Wars Visions is almost like the alternative version of that, where they can tell different stories and they can do different things. They're not using the same characters and stuff, which I think is actually better. Because I don't want to see like, you know, what happened if, you know, Darth Vader won, or, you know, that kind of thing. Like, I like the Visions where they can tell different stories and do something else within this massive universe. With Marvel, the What If sort of series kind of seems to make sense. I think with Star Wars, we need to keep that one storyline going and not confusing people. And I think Visions kind of works with that a little bit. But yeah, I see where you're going from, but I kind of think of Visions as the kind of the alternative what if for Star Wars. But let us know what you think of that in the comments below. Remember to go check us out over at what's on at disneyplus.com. Later this week, we've got some big news hopefully coming out of the quarterly financial results, which is later today. But it's about like 10 o'clock my time, so I'll be talking about that tomorrow. So expect lots of news on that. Hopefully we find out some more details on what's happening with Hulu. But nevertheless, guys, let me know what you think of all today's news in the comments below. Go check us out over at what's on at disneyplus.com. Like, follow and subscribe, and I shall see you guys soon. Laters.